Welcome to the wreath making workshop with the Flower Farm. This is our second year of the video workshops. We started them last year due to COVID restrictions, and we are delighted that so many people enjoyed them and wanted to do them again this time. We suggest that you pour yourself something festive and watch the video through before making a start on your own wreath. Then you can always pause, rewind and replay as often as you like. The instructions are also in the booklet within your pack. We would really love to see your finished wreaths. If you don't mind sharing them on social media, we are the Flower Farm Lancashire on Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram. So without any further ado, I'll pass you over to Alison.
The first part, you're going to need your ring, your reel wire, which should be in the plastic bag in your kit, and also this random little bit of ribbon, which may be green, it may be another colour, which is also in your bag of your kit. So the first thing we're going to do is make a hook. So if you start by securing this around the wire, can you see? Okay, and then if you twisted it around a few times, you want to poke the sharp end into the moss so that it doesn't scratch your door. Okay, and then go round and round in the same spot a few times, just so it's nice and secure. Come back up to the top. And then you want to make a hook. So you want a hook maybe about that big, depending on where you're going to hang it. Okay, and then go back round a couple of times, maybe either side of the hook, so it's nice and secure. And then just go around the bottom of the actual hook itself a few times. And then once you think you're finished, just give it a good tug, make sure that it's secure. And then take your ribbon and tie that to the top of your hook so that you can then keep an eye on where that is at all times and you don't lose it and it doesn't end up wired in and you've got no way to hang it up. For the second part of the workshop today, we are going to do the actual wreath. So the main points to remember is that you want everything to point the same way. Now this is the part that we sometimes struggle with people on the workshops when we do them face to face. So it's really important that I try and explain this to you as well as I can, and that you really listen, because if you go wrong at this point, unfortunately we're not there to help you and get you to go back. So the really important thing to remember is that everything faces the same way. I'm just going to lay a few pieces on the top now, just to show you in a simple way. So I'm going to work clockwise around the wreath. We start at the top, 12 o'clock is where your hook is. So we're going to start at just after 12 with the bottom piece of your first piece of fur will be just after 12 o'clock. And then I'll show you how we're going to fix it in a second. I just want to get this point across to you about it. And then the next pieces that you lay on will be in the same direction, the bottom, like that. And then the next pieces, the bottom, like that. And then the next pieces, the bottom, like that. So you can see you're going to work all the way around the same way, and it's laying on top of each other. You should never need to lift to put it underneath. You don't ever want the ends, the bottom ends, on show. So I will start. Usually we'll start with a piece of fur. Now you want it to be full and bushy, and you don't want to lose your hole in the middle. So go with bushier pieces towards the outside, and then find some smaller pieces towards the inside. So we'll start again, 12 o'clock is where your hook is. So just after 12, lay these pieces on, and then what you want to do is take your wire and pull it tight, wind it round twice, pulling it really, really tight. As they start to dry out, things start to shrink, and if you've not pulled it tight enough, that's when you'll, on a windy day, find bits of wreath scattered all over your front garden. So depending on the different pieces of foliage you've got in your kit, I'm going to do a silvery frosty kind of a wreath today, and these are the types of foliage that have come in this kit. Doesn't really matter, you can go really random with your pattern if you want, but I tend to try and stick to a pattern until I get halfway around and realise I've forgotten something altogether and it ends up random. So I tend to go fur and then some fancy pieces. If you can, with your fancy pieces, just try and poke the ends of the stalks into the moss. It'll just help them last a little bit longer. And then go round again, once, twice, pulling it tight, like that. Next, we'll get some fur again, a bushier piece to the outside. When you're going around the edge, if you imagine that your work surface is your door, so you want them to be touching the work surface, you don't want to have a sort of gap between your wreath and your door. You want it to lay flat and snugly onto the door. Let's find another smaller piece. That's a very small piece, I might bob two in. Like this. And then round. You may snap your wire as you're going round if you don't know your own strength. It does happen sometimes. Don't worry if it does. You can just, where it's snapped, find the end and then get the end of your reel and then just twist them and turn them, tie them in a knot, and then pull it to make sure it's secure, and it'll be absolutely fine. Okay, and then next I'm going to go with some of the rosemary. So don't worry, at first you're going to think, gosh, it's looking awful bare. It covers itself up as you go along. Don't make the mistake of trying to bunch everything up too close together, because that's when you'll run out. And even if you don't run out, it won't look bigger and fluffier, it'll look more compact and tighter. So next, more fancy pieces with the rosemary. We tend to keep the fancier pieces on more to the top, just then you see them better on your door. 2, and then back to some fur. Like that. 2. And then don't worry if you get part way around and you think, gosh, I've got an awfully bald bit there. At the end, we'll show you how to decorate it, and we always use lots of fir cones and things like that, which are quite useful for hiding a bald spot. And then if you're still not happy with the finish at the end, we can show you how to wire an extra piece in. Okay, so once you get round to this part, you'll see 12 o'clock. It's more like 6 o'clock now towards you, and you've gone all the way around, all facing the same way. It starts to look like a complete circle. And then this is the next sort of tricky part. when you get close to the end, it's almost like you need to grow an extra pair of hands. So I'll just show you on the last few sections what I'm doing. So again, smaller piece to the middle, bigger piece to the outside, wrap it around a couple of times. And then I think this is probably my last section of fancy pieces. All the way around I've gone fur, fancy piece, fur, fancy piece, fur, fancy piece. And then push this. Again, you want to be pulling these first pieces back. You don't want the wire to go over these first pieces, otherwise you're just going to have a bit of a mess at the top and it's going to be all flat. I'll pop these in here and then holding the first pieces back, go around, and then last pieces you want to try and finish on your fur, even if it messes your pattern up a bit. So pull these right back and then push these underneath. This is the only time in the whole thing that you want to be pushing them underneath. Everything else you must lay on top. And then just go round. Twice. Pick your wreath up and then just go round your hook a few times just for security. And then scissors, snip off the end and push it into the back so it doesn't scratch your door. And then you should have your wreath.
Okay, I'm going to now show you how to wire all the decorations ready to place onto your wreath. Everybody's kit is different depending on which theme you decided to go for. But we've just got a little selection here of the various sorts of things that you may have included. I will leave the bow for now, we'll do that last. A robin is really straightforward because he's already got his own wire, so all we will do is poke him through and bend it through. Cones, I think most of the kits have got cones. So you want to cut a piece of your reel wire, maybe about 1 foot long, a bit shorter perhaps. And then you place your wire over the bottom little bit of the fronds of the cone. Go all the way around as tight as you can. And then twist. So you should have 2 legs that then will be able to be anchored into the wreath. Baubles. Some are just a flat base like that. Some have got a little hook. To be honest, I think it may be easier to avoid using the hook because it makes them a little bit wobbly, and to go around the neck rather instead. So if you just go around a few times, I think, oops, as tight as you can get it. It's a bit hard on a slippery surface. And then twist. You've got 2 legs then for inserting that. Just check everything's nice and firm when you've done it. So I'd do exactly the same on the big bauble. For the fruit slices, got another piece. We tend to like to use 2 at once. It just gives it, they give each other a little bit of support, and it gives a little bit more oomph than just 1 piece. You could always mix, so you could do an apple and an orange together or singly. And then for these, the wire goes through quite near the edge of the rind. Don't try and go through the rind because it'll be really difficult to get through because they're dried. So quite near one edge. Don't go right through the middle because your wire will show. So straight through and then the twist again. So when that's then inserted into the wreath, the foliage will hide that little bit of wire. Okay. So again, exactly the same with the apples. Decide which way you want them to go. Straight through, relatively near the edge, maybe about 1/2 centimetre in. And then just hold the wire quite tight where it's going through the apples before you twist. Otherwise, because they're a little bit delicate, they may well rip out. So you want a nice wire like that. These little toadstools have already got wires on, so you may have other decorations that are already wired up. All I would suggest is you try and straighten them if they're a little bit bent, because it makes it easier to insert. Any of the like little tiny baubles, you can either put those in singly or get a little group together and just literally twist to make one wire for insertion. And then if you've got some wooden shapes, you need to cut a piece of wire again, and then we're just going to find just a way, a little pattern, just to put it on nice and tight and twist at the back. So again, once that is inserted, you'll just see that little bit of decorative wire on the top. I'm going to make the bow for your wreath. It comes folded up, just smooth it all out to get rid of any kinks, and then you need to bend it in half to find the middle. Oh, I forgot to say, I've already cut about 30 centimeters of the real wire ready to tie it with. So yeah, find the middle, and then you need to pinch it across. Okay, so you've right in the middle, and you've done like a pinch. So you've then got your arm in the middle with one leg on either side. Okay, so you need to choose one leg. So I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to go so it's straight out and make a loop about 10 centimeters and then scrunch it in. Okay, with that same leg. So it's now gone across that middle point, and so but both legs are now on the same size of your hand. I'm going to then flick it back over, pinch it again, and then it comes back to its original side. So you can see we've made like a figure of 8. So we went up, round, down, round. So if you just knit that in the middle, both those loops are separate. Okay, so then we need to do the same with the other leg. So I'm going to make a loop that side, cross it over, pinch it in the middle, and then flick it back over and pinch it again there. So once you've got your 2 figures of 8, and you should have your 2 legs either side of your hand, you put your wire over the top, bring it round to the back, and literally just twist. And that makes you a nice secure bow. If you wanted to, you didn't want tails, you could always do a 3rd loop either side, or you could do them slightly smaller if you wanted extra and some trails. It's just personal choice. And then we always say to cut the ends of your ribbon in either a diagonal or a V to stop them fraying. Okay, so we've got our wreath back. Got your hook at the top where it's going to hang from. We will of course remove this before you hang it up, unless you can tuck it in somewhere out of the way. So that's your top of your wreath, and that's your bottom, obviously. So it's up to you now to decide whether you want to have your bow at the top, at a jaunty angle somewhere, or at the bottom. So I'll just lay it back down. So I think I'm going to go at the top. So what I'm going to do on the piece of wire, I'm going to split its legs, if that makes sense. You see? And I'm going to place it directly by the hook and just thread the wires around the foliage. So I'm not squashing them unnecessarily. And then at the back, I'm going to get both wires, join them back up together and twist. That way, there's no way that the wind can blow that wreath out, that ribbon out. So I'll just snip those off. Be careful if you're going to put your green waste in the recycling that you keep your pieces of wire separate. You don't want them to end up going with the foliage waste to the recycling centres. Okay, so that should be the bow. Fasten nicely into a wreath. Now, for your other decorations, you could do the same if you want. You can split the two legs, go round either side, carefully threading it to avoid squashing any foliage, and twist at the back. Again, making sure you cut off any excess wire and feed it back into the moss, because you do not want them scratching your door. Or the alternative is to cut your wires down a little bit. So there's a good maybe 5 centimetres. And then you can just, following the lie of your foliage, you can just poke them straight into the moss until they anchor. It's up to you. You can use them all. You can just use 2 or 3. You can group them together. It's personal choice as to how you want to put them in. I would suggest, if you know that your door gets a little bit of hammer from the rain and the wind, that you go round with the wires rather than the poking in method, because it's just that little bit extra secure. I'll put this one, I'll move this one and 2 together. Now, don't think you have to use all the decorations, or if you've got something at home that you particularly like the look of and you want to put that in, you know, feel free. There's no obligation to actually use everything that we've put in the kit. And let's just straighten those wires as much as I can and then insert them into the moss. Same with stars. Or all the other decorations, most of them now are on a wire. It's just a case of getting the hang of threading them in or wrapping them round, deciding where you want. What you could do is lay everything on first, decide where you want it, and then go back and fasten it into place. Just try not to forget and then you pick something up and it's not fastened on. You don't want that to happen. Jingle bell here. Another option is, if you've got a stem that's sort of a rigid stem, you can actually wrap items around the stem as well. That's another option for attaching. Oh, we've got these little buttoned snowflakes, which are quite pretty. So we've just literally done a stitch with the wire through those. If you've got any glue, you could always glue these on as well. You don't have to, anything small and lightweight like that doesn't necessarily have to go on a wire. It could be, if you've got something like a boss stick glue, I think is what you need. You don't want obviously a Pritt stick or something that isn't going to be secure enough. And you also don't want something that's going to dry white. Got a glittery star here. Put him in down there. Okay. Bell up here, I think. Oh, there's all sorts of nice things. I'm going to go up here a bit. I'm not really doing a set pattern as such. I'm just putting things in where I think they'll look nice. But you could do it really uniform if you prefer. Okay, so then you can, like I say, either undo that piece of green ribbon or just tuck it down the back for hanging the finished wreath. Oops. Earlier on in the videos, we said we would show you how to wire in any additional foliage that you think once you've finished. Oh, there's a bit of a gap there. So we've got a piece of the fir, and I've just pulled off all the bottom needles to get a nice clean piece of stem. Then taking a piece of wire, I'm going to bend it in half And with one of those wire legs, I'm just going to go around as tight as I can a few times to get it nicely secured to the wire. And then I'm just going to poke this in right at the top here. So you just poke your wire through your moss and bend it into position where you want.